Alright everyone, so we have another video here from Hot Boy Spicy, and this is, I guess, part 2 of a video that we already watched called What Makes Naruto So Special? Resolution to Naruto. Now you can find that video on my channel. I'll leave a link to it at the end of this video, and I'll also leave a link in the description to this video that we're about to watch right here, as well as a link to Hot Boy Spicy's channel. So make sure you guys head on over there, watch his videos, subscribe to his channel, go show him any kind of support that you can, and make sure you do that with every other content creator we watch here, guys. Okay, so I'm curious to watch this video because I thought that the previous video that he made that we reacted to was really good. He pointed out a lot of interesting things about Naruto, you know, how the story is written, and the you know, the character dynamics, and what what you can kind of infer from the different conflicts that Kishimoto wrote into the story. You know, you've got obviously Naruto and Sasuke, Naruto and Gaara. There was Naruto and Pain, of course, which is probably what a lot of people would consider to be one of the most well-known fights in all of Naruto. Maybe not the most popular. I still think that that title goes to Rock Lee versus Gaara in the Chunin exams, but it is absolutely one of the most well-known and, in my opinion, one of the best written fights in all of Naruto. I absolutely love that fight. So we're gonna go ahead and watch this video, but before we do, guys, as always, I do have to ask you that if you want to support the channel, please make sure to leave a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to click the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, as well as any recommendations for videos you want me to react to. Just let me know about them in the comments and I will get to them. And just one more time, if you're wondering why the volume or the audio from the video that we're watching is kept low, I do it because I have to, in order to avoid copyright, because there were multiple times where I had the audio a bit too high and the video was blocked from being uploaded because of, you know, a copyright bot caught it or something, and you can't dispute when it comes to music. You just can't. It's not possible. So that's why I have to keep it low. I know it sucks because you can barely hear the audio of the video, but I kind of have to in order to make sure that the video gets properly uploaded, and hopefully it won't get dinged in the future. You know, just because it manages to get by the copyright bots in YouTube, that doesn't mean that it can't get dinged later on. So that's why I got to take these precautions, which is why, of course, you're seeing the filters that I also put on the video so that I can't get dinged for any footage that's being shown, even if it's edited, even if it's got my commentary over it, or if it's got you know, Hot Boy Spicy's commentary over it. It doesn't matter. They still catch it, and yeah, it's broken and it sucks, but it is what it is. So that's why I have to take these steps to make sure nothing happens, because I kind of don't want to lose my channel. So there you go, guys. I hope you understand. Okay, sorry for the long explanation. Let's go ahead and just get to the video.
This video is part 2 of a 3-part series. While you don't necessarily need to see the previous entry to fully enjoy and understand this video, I'd highly recommend you check it out. For my complete
Like I said, I'll leave a link to my reaction to part 1 at the end of this video.
Let's get to the good stuff. Naruto is not a story about the rise of an underdog. It is a story about an underdog who rises, falls, rises, falls.
No, I think some people might disagree with you there, so... I mean, I always thought that, you know, Naruto's story is about, you know, someone who started off as an underdog and then manages to, you know, I always thought that it was an underdog story. You know, Naruto's someone who started off as this person who had little to no talent, someone who nobody expected anything from at all, because of, you know, how talentless he was, and also, of course, being the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, a lot of people look down on him, and his journey to gaining people's acceptance, and then eventually people looking to him to lead them. At least that's what I thought. And then, well, I mean, you know, the whole thing that happened later on in the story. We don't need to get into it. We've already discussed it in great lengths in previous videos.
Falls and rises once more to assert destiny's curse. Each rise and fall important because they are all checkpoints on one road synonymous with the world. A common misconception is the story of Naruto hits a deadlock in progression by the conclusion of the Pain arc. Our main character achieves what he set out to do from the beginning. This sends Naruto on a perpetual upward draft till the conclusion of the story. I urge you though, dear viewer, recall the end of an adolescent path pre-time skip. Naruto, fighting his rival with the goal of Hokage in his sights, fails. Yet, when fighting with the goal of Sasuke in his sights, succeeds. The distinction, a true understanding of himself. Sasuke's pain, the world's pain, his pain. They are all different, but they are also cut from the same cloth. The state of the world dictated their pain, and from that pain they grew. But they grew in different ways. Two men, once diametrical in their wounds, clashed with conflicting ideologies. Here, though, they are much more alike in their suffering, but still offer up answers opposed to one another. Nagato believed it was only through pain that people could understand one another. But there was a catch. This method was doomed to be transient. It wouldn't last, because suffering forms monsters in isolation. Pain can only be effective when allied with something else, and all it takes is one person to offer it to the afflicted. But the person themselves can only offer something of value once they've matured enough to see the same world as the downtrodden. Pain, hatred, help, suppression, reflection, confrontation, understanding, and, finally, resolution. All of these phenomena are born from conflict. Without it, there is no misery, but at the same time, there is no resolution. A world devoid of pain is a world devoid of resolution. It is a world vacant of maturity, vacant of true understanding. For Naruto to confront these farcical solutions, though, he would have to acquire what he lacks most. To understand what led up to the scarred world before him, he would first have to understand what led up to Uzumaki Naruto. He would have to hurt himself, look at himself, and battle himself to rise once more.
So that's actually it's actually very interesting, everything that he said right there. In order for Naruto to understand, he needs to understand the circumstances that pretty much led to them being in the situation that they're in. And I always loved how again, going into the whole thing that Kishimoto does when it comes to the two characters, Naruto and Sasuke, is that their journeys kind of parallel each other, and I've always loved that he did that with them. The whole yin and yang thing, light and dark, sun and moon. I've always liked that, and you even see that in Shippuden, where Naruto went on this journey to understand the circumstances that led them to where they are now, or more specifically, the circumstances that led to him being where he is now. Maybe not specifically the world, but more so how he ended up getting to where he is. And I also like that Sasuke, eventually we see him also go through that same journey, where the story sort of shifts from Naruto's perspective back to Sasuke's perspective, and we get to see him use Orochimaru to perform the reanimation jutsu and bring back the previous four Kage, and through him through the Hashirama specifically, where he was recounting the story of him and Madara, their relationship, their friendship, and how it eventually fell apart, and how they both just diverged and went on their own paths. And then after learning all of that, came to his own conclusion. And that's just something that I've always really liked, because it would have been absolutely boring if both of them just sort of came to the same conclusion, and then Sasuke went to the war, and both of them worked together and everything would have just been fine or whatever. And yeah, there would have been the whole thing to resolve about Sasuke deserting the village, and can he be pardoned for that and becoming a member of the Akatsuki. But I just love how Kishimoto didn't go down that road, and he had Sasuke sort of come to his own conclusions. And he makes it clear that while him and Naruto do agree on some things, they still see things differently, because again, at the end of the day, they're two different people. And even though you could say they went through some things, or some things that happened to them were similar to each other, they both ended up coming to different conclusions. And I've always really liked that. And Naruto, his whole thing is accepting what happened in the past and choosing to move forward. And with Sasuke, he accepts it in a way, but still like decides that instead of just accepting what happened in the past because it's what led him to being where he is now, I think that that was sort of Sasuke's problem, because what happened before never should have happened in the first place. And he still blames people for why he is where he is now, instead of, you know, accepting that a lot of, or the biggest reason why he is where he is now is because he made his own choices. You know, he chose to leave the Leaf Village and go to Orochimaru. He chose to join the Akatsuki. He chose to do all of this. At the end, he chose to try to eliminate the previous 5 Kage. Like, those are all his choices. Yes, what happened in the past played a part of it, but instead of accepting it and choosing to move forward like Naruto did, he was still letting himself be influenced by what happened in the past, whereas Naruto accepted that what happened in the past happened and it's a part of him, but he's not going to let it dictate who he is and where he's going to go moving forward. At least, you know, that's how I see it. And Sasuke is basically the complete opposite of that. And I love how even after the fight ends, you have that, you know, in chapter 699, you have Sasuke sort of like, you hear his narration. And one thing that I love, because I recently went back and reread those chapters, you know, the fight between Naruto and Sasuke, and I love how when you got to that end and you know, in chapter 699 where you hear Sasuke, you know, Sasuke narrating, and I always love how it's written in as if, you know, this stuff has already happened and he's just, you know, recounting the events of, you know, the end of their fight. And I always wondered if maybe like maybe, you know, in the Boruto story, if maybe Kishimoto, now that he's back to writing the manga, if maybe he's gonna pick up on that and sort of do something with it, where maybe at the end, like kind of like how in the Boruto series you're hearing, you know, you heard in chapter 1 at least, him saying that, you know, my story starts a few years back, and then we're basically seeing the events you know, unfold before we get to that moment in the that we saw in chapter 1, where him and Kawaki are sort of fighting each other, and you know, we're wondering like what happened that led to that. I wonder if maybe like at the end of the series we're going to sort of see like a continuation of that. Like maybe it'll cut to all right, sorry about that, guys. Just something. I got distracted for a second. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So I wonder if maybe near the end we're sort of going to pick up on that, and you know, like we'll see. You know, we'll see like maybe Sasuke in the future, and he's, you know, recounting, and now we're officially where we are now. Because if you go back and you read that narration, it sounds like it's taking place like far in the future and he's just remembering that moment. And I wonder if maybe he's going to pick up on that and sort of go somewhere with it, or if he's just gonna, I don't know, maybe he's just not gonna do anything with it at all. But anyway, I've gone on long enough. Let's continue with the video.
Once more. The merit of a ninja is not solely dependent on their physical abilities. As introduced in the beginning of the story, an ideal shinobi is one who can not only deceive, but break through deception. The fourth Hokage could not uncover the deception of the world's calamity. The man behind the mask, while exuding every conceivable essence of Madara Uchiha, was only the legend and ideology. Madara Uchiha is not a man, but a motive, an ideal that transforms one's whole identity, contorting it on a path toward one objective. This march toward false peace desecrating everything in its wake. For what purpose is there in crushing a land that should matter not to a man who relinquished his identity? The answer is simple. Parting with his identity is impossible. Since he couldn't forget, the next best thing was to eliminate the distraction. He could have left after accomplishing his objective, could have avoided dangerous confrontation. Yet, he chooses to let loose his wrath, chooses to face a portion of his pain. Minato was only half right in his deduction. The man before him was Madara Uchiha, but only in persona. It'd be as simple as discarding his mask to reveal the truth. Personas are just that fickle. The weight of the name Madara Uchiha is used not only to convince Obito of his separation from the world, but it is also a symbolic mask used to deceive his opponents. If he displays attributes of the legend, then they'll be convinced enough to not dig any further, because if his former master could see beyond the lies of deception, the sound of this battle would ring a far different tone. Madara used the knowledge of Obito to devise a perfect plan, yet his insistence on eliminating
I really do wish he would have, brought the chains back in the 4th grade, Shinobi War when he was fighting against Naruto, Kakashi, and Guy, because I always thought the chains were cool.
the past complicated what would have been a cinch to a man truly above his former self. But he wasn't. He could never be. He fails to destroy the past, fails to prove his prowess over it, and fails to accomplish the only objective that should have been relevant to Madara. But he succeeds in keeping the facade intact. The name Madara Uchiha would haunt Minato even after death. He saved his village and entrusted power to his son. But both actions would reap future consequences. Since he saw his enemy as no more than what he exuded, he was unable to halt more devastation. And since he was unable to see the Nine Tails as little more than a potential asset for Naruto, he perpetuated more destructive hatred. But despite these shortcomings, Minato didn't fail, because his accomplishments in this turmoil would foster a shinobi that could break through the ultimate deception. It would foster a shinobi that not only halts, but mends hatred spanning generations. This shinobi, as straight shooting as he may be, so impractical as to wear an orange jumpsuit in a world where the standouts are easy targets, he ironically is the ninja who will break the illusionary mask with the help of detrimental power he turned beneficial. But before any of this could happen, Naruto too would have to face his past.
See, this is where we,
Who am I? It's a question everyone faces, with an answer ever so elusive. One can easily walk a road labeled peace and reach a dead end called war. The actions themselves don't capture the individual's will, because the will does not necessarily dictate action and reaction. Naruto can say he wants to achieve what Jiraiya could not, can look like he has all the tools to achieve it with power surpassing his masters before him, but prowess and idealism alone does not solve issues, especially one as gargantuan as the world's gaping wound. He's so powerful, he's grown so much, and so many people have entrusted him with making the seemingly impossible possible. But even with all this going for him, he stumbles yet again after just finding footing on this long, arduous road. Nagato knew more than Naruto. He knew so much more, in fact, that he accurately predicted Naruto's fate before his demise. Naruto will come to know war, and when he does, that's when the real battle begins. The harsh reality is the victory over pain was a mere prelude to a lesson much bigger and much harder to endure. If understanding is quintessential to begin the process of resolution, then Naruto hadn't even achieved the first step. And this idea is reinforced by Naruto's new hypocrisy. He carries it with him when he grimaces through pointless blows, carries it with him when he brushes off a friend, and carries it with him when he is faced with his past failure. Naruto proved his strength over pain, so he doubles down on this fortitude by completely subscribing to his status as the child of prophecy. But, as the great Toad Sage lays out, even in the previous turmoil, that prophecy was usurped when Naruto and Nagato initiated great change together. He couldn't confront pain alone, and couldn't reach his foe without the lesson Nagato taught him. Yet he carries himself like his shoulders alone are capable enough to bear the weight of the world's pain. He's seen what that burden has done to the many he's encountered, so he makes a foolhardy effort to not let any more of that weight be distributed. He disregards that he never carried it alone in any of his battles. Disregards it is only when he endured that weight salvation was achieved. No one else can walk this road with him if their shoulders are bare. Naruto's selflessness becomes a weapon threatening his own dream. But he's not the only one in this web of contorted ambition. Paralleling him is the whole of Team 7, their faults all laid out and highlighted at the climax of the Kage Summit. Sai makes a grave error. His deduction of Naruto's resolve is completely separate from Sakura. But Sakura wouldn't know this, because Naruto wouldn't tell her, wouldn't tell Sai, wouldn't tell Kakashi. He can't give up on Sasuke because it would be the same as giving up on his dream. Sasuke, Hokage, and the world. All of these things, as unrelated as they may seem, are synonymous. Hokage is merely a status. It's not, I'm going to be Hokage, but instead, this is the kind of Hokage I'm going to be. Someone that can mend the broken, even if it seems futile. If he gives up on Sasuke, then he might as well give up on the world too, because the latter is far more daunting. Naruto accuses Sakura of lying to herself, but she's not. She never meant one word she said. The one who forced her into this corner is none other than Naruto, because he refuses to allow anyone close to this new path he follows. Everyone else is left with only assumptions. He isn't doing this for Sakura, or even Sasuke. He's doing it for himself, because this is what he needs to do in order to become the Hokage he desires. But when a future fellow Kage tries to reach out, even in a direct way, Naruto still persists with silence. It was he who taught Gaara how to connect with others, but now Naruto is doing everything in his power to stray away from his own lesson. His actions
hold on a second.
Betray Gaara's kindness and deepen the rift in Team 7. Sakura's betrayal of her feelings is a facade, but it's a prelude to the true betrayal she initiates immediately after this debacle. Sasuke is unrecognizable to her, and it's no wonder. He, just like Naruto, is riding on newfound hypocrisy. His, though, is far more black than his rivals. Sasuke reels when Danzo justifies sacrificing the Uchiha for the Leaf's greater good, and smiles when he justifies sacrificing Karin for his greater good. He uses his hatred as a weapon, eradicates his foe with it, and hurts an outlying party in the process. The same boy who didn't know anything, lying at Itachi's feet, perpetuates a similar cycle of despair for a reason much colder. This freezing aura adds justification behind Sakura's kunai.
Okay, so before he continues, I just want to talk about this real quick, because it's interesting, because I've heard people talk about this before. You know, a lot of people, because you know, he just pointed it out, a lot of people completely missed what Kishimoto was doing here in the in this part of the story. And I understand that, you know, a lot of people, like, whenever they talk about this, they just talk about, oh, Sakura, you know, was just telling Naruto, you know, she loves him or whatever, and everyone's just completely telling her to, you know, shut the F up or whatever. It's like, we know you're lying. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the point. I mean, even Naruto knows even Naruto knows she's lying. It's like everyone there knows she's lying. Like, nobody's buying it. But the thing is that, again, you know, he's right. Like, Naruto at the time, like, he never sat down and actually talked to any of them. He never explained to them where he's coming from. And okay, well, they might not agree with what he's doing. They might not even agree with his worldview about, you know, like, saving Sasuke isn't just about, like, saving a friend. Like, it's become more than that. It's become something that is basically testing his very worldview, you know, like, because he, like, being the Hokage to Naruto isn't just, you know, isn't just about, you know, being the Hokage. It's not about achieving that title. It's more to him than that. It's like, if he it's more about, again, this is just my speculation, it's more about, and he even, you know, points it out, it's more so about him trying to prove that, I guess, his way of doing things is right. Like, he believes that as long as, you know, the world continues the way it's been up until this point, it's just gonna cause more pain. You know, the kind of pain that Naruto went through, the kind of pain that Nagato went through, the kind of pain that Sasuke went through, that a lot of people around the world have went through, because, you know, for a long time the world's just continued on the cycle of war, peace, war, peace, war, peace, and all it does is hurt people. And he wants to put an end to that. And he believes that by saving Sasuke, and if he can do it, if he can stop someone from going further down the road of, you know, just like creating more anger, more hate, which Sasuke definitely did do by kidnapping, you know, B, and, you know, causing pain to not just the village hidden in the clouds, but also to the Hokage, who was his brother, and also to a lot of his friends or people who look up to him. You know, he basically caused them pain, and now they want to go after him. And then if they go after him, they're going to cause pain to the people who care about Sasuke, and then they're going to want to go after them, and then it's just going to go on and on and on. So for Naruto, saving Sasuke is about more than just saving a friend or keeping a promise. Hell, he even tells her that in the in this encounter, where he tells her that, you know, yes, maybe at first it was about keeping a promise, but now it's more than that. Now it's saving him means that it is possible to put an end to this. It is possible to stop this, you know, cycle that we're on, where we just keep hurting each other, and it's just going to go on and on and on. And if we hurt each other, we're going to hurt the people who are closest to us, and then they're going to hurt each other because they got hurt because of what the other person did to the person I care about, and so on and so forth. And I always feel like people kind of like miss that. Like that's kind of what like I guess Kishimoto was going for. At least, again, in my opinion. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was trying to go he was trying to go for something else, and I'm just completely missing it. But that's just what it feels like to me. And again, he even points it out in this video. And you know, like Naruto, again, I always found it interesting that, you know, Kishimoto's having Naruto do this thing where he's pushing everyone away, again doing the same thing that Sasuke did. And even earlier, you know, when he completes the Rasen Shuriken, he does it not to, you know, not to just better himself, not to grow his own strength, but in a way he's doing it to basically try to catch up to him, try to catch up to Sasuke, because the last time he saw him, he was so strong, he just completely floored all of them. And he feels like Sasuke's grown so strong, and now, like, now that I've accomplished this, am I even close to where you are now? And like everything that he was doing was all motivated by Sasuke, and trying to catch up to him and trying to reach him, everything that he was doing. And now this is, you could say, another thing that he's doing, where he's trying to maybe understand him. And I don't know if he's doing this purposefully or if he's doing this subconsciously, where he's pushing people away, acting like how Sasuke acted at the beginning, where he pushed everyone away and, you know, took everything on himself, you know, the whole burden of getting revenge against Itachi, and believing that the best way to do it is to push everyone away and just focus on yourself, focus on getting stronger.
He isn't doing this for Sakura or even Sasuke.
Let's go back to where we were.
Much colder. This freezing aura adds justification behind Sakura's kunai. She tells herself the man in front of her isn't Sasuke. But is this really the case? Sure, his actions can't be bogged down to simply misguided anymore, but it's not like there isn't a root to his madness. Contorted as his ambition has become, it's still Sasuke's path. Just because something is hard to see doesn't mean it's not still there. And it's for this very reason Sakura hesitates. She's doing this for Naruto, but he doesn't want this, and she doesn't want this. While Naruto chokes on his own toxic selflessness, it contaminates Sakura as well. If Naruto won't allow her to bear her own share of the weight, then she will carry her own cumbersome load. And just like Naruto, she crumbles. Kakashi spawns to her rescue as a false savior. He puts off airs that he is different in his solo burden, because as sensei, it's his responsibility to mend what he previously could not. But, as Sasuke blatantly points out, he's not their sensei anymore. He's so much their peer now, even his blight is the same. He doesn't acknowledge Sakura's turmoil, just like Naruto did, which leaves him blind to her haphazard devotion. He refuses to ask himself why Sasuke would commit these atrocities, instead scolding his former student for the actions themselves. He doesn't know the current Sasuke, so why would the same outdated lecture work now? He deludes himself into believing he relieved Sakura of this burden, but Sakura foolishly never let it go, and Naruto swoops in to take it all for himself again. He steps forward, in front of Sakura, in front of Kakashi. He won't let them stand beside him as he confronts the rift in their team. Naruto discards the obvious, that they are as much a part of this as him and Sasuke, but even in this matter, he persists. Sakura needs to kill Sasuke. Kakashi needs to kill Sasuke. No, he would do it. And take it one step further, he wouldn't just shoulder Sakura and Kakashi's weight, but Sasuke's as well, by dying with him. How, though, is this any kind of resolution? Naruto and Sasuke make up half of their shattered team. If they were to perish, that wouldn't patch the rift, but instead make it impossible to retrieve scattered pieces. He understands his rival more than his comrades, yet still lacks a fundamental answer to resolve anything. Naruto abandons the very thing he wants for Sasuke. Sasuke remains unmoved in the stasis of darkness. Sakura opts to trust in the two she believes in the most, and Kakashi leaves the rest in Naruto's clumsy hands. All of them scattered even more after this confrontation, with Naruto falsely believing he has the magnet that will pull them back together. What does it take to rise above despair? This is the essential question for a Jinchuruki. Naruto was born into rough circumstances, yet he always had combative gifts that could be nurtured. But did those gifts help him find resolution with Nagato? Did they help him redeem Zabuza? Isn't the power he's amassed now the very reason for his recent disillusionment? Fukai lays it out bluntly. For those forced into the realm of outcasts, skill doesn't have a lot to do with survival. There's much greater power to draw from, a power which can only be found externally. Killer B, a Jinchuruki peer, is the first to recognize Naruto's shortcomings in this domain. Naruto aims to confront the world's hatred, but he hasn't even conquered his own. The past scar still lingers as much as ever. And it makes sense, because at no point in his journey has he directly faced his hate-filled eyes from back then. Here, though, he finally does. When he sees his other as a fake, he fails. But in his comeback, he understands who he's looking at. Since it's all him, then the rest is simple. If he still harbors hatred, then he'll accept it. It won't just disappear. It can't. Naruto doesn't say goodbye to his painful past. He embraces it. It might have been hard. He might hate what he went through. But all those memories made him who he is now. They don't fade away after Naruto acknowledges them. They become one with him again. The first step in this new path is achieved. No one is above their past, their pain, or their hatred. This action doesn't necessarily heal our hero's wounds, but it does enable the recovery process. A recovery process that leads to the perfect remedy for a wounded heart. A mother's wisdom, her love, it really can't be beat. But what Kushina provides here extends even further. Naruto's root, the very essence of his existence, is tied to his identity as the Nine-Tails host. And, as far as he's concerned, it's brought him nothing but suffering. Kushina puts all of that suffering into perspective, though. He didn't become a Jinchuruki out of happenstance or convenience, but because he was entrusted with a task that the people who treasure him most could not fulfill. He's had a dark hole inside him since birth, and now it's revealed the greatest tragedy of all was it obscured the two sons that have always been with him. Now that Naruto can see them with the truth Kushina unveils, the void in its entirety is plugged away. His father stalled his vengeful heart, and his mother picked up the slack by mending it with love. With the help of others, with the weight of his past being distributed, Naruto resolves his inner turmoil. Next up, the world. It's fitting, Naruto's first opponent in the war is the man who once carried the same blight. Itachi immersed himself in solitude as a self-sacrifice. Since he put the entire weight of his clan on his shoulders, he inadvertently distributed useless baggage to his precious younger brother. Sounds familiar, right? It's the same effect Naruto had on Sakura and Kakashi. Itachi failed, and he acknowledges his failure not only with his words, but his actions. The jutsu he had planned to cast on Sasuke after his death is omitted. Since his road of solitude led to nothing but further suffering, he opts to share what he once considered his sole burden. If he put Sasuke under a forced genjutsu to resolve the current turmoil, he'd be the same as Madara. And if Naruto keeps obsessively relying on his power alone, he too would resemble that mass of darkness all the same. Itachi is quick to recognize his shortcomings, and quick to understand they mirror Naruto's. His eyes, once blind to the missteps of his path, now see more than they ever have before after death. The road of failure sowed seeds for future success. It was the same with Nagato, and it would be the same for the calamity that initiated this war. Itachi's newfound insight enlightens Naruto, and even enlightens Sasuke. Despite bearing witness to the rotting fruits of his labor, he doesn't scorn his path. He accepts failure, accepts his role in the war, and accepts Sasuke despite his plans for the Leaf. Since he's accepted everything, he is able to see clearly. This revival allows him a chance to make one final action for the Leaf. And, most importantly, it allows him to make the right decisions. By entrusting his wish, he found the camaraderie he lacked in life. And by telling the truth to Sasuke, he dissolves the manipulative path he started. Now, he can forgive himself. No hatred, no lamentation, only love in his final moments. All of these emotions directed at his younger brother with the transparency he's always deserved. For the first time in Sasuke's life, a member of his clan didn't treat him like a child, or use him as a tool in a misguided plan. And this truth inspires Sasuke to seek more truth, the importance of this newfound task dwarfing the relevance of old conflicts. Orochimaru failed, and just like Itachi, Sasuke's path exposed his failings. They both desired power, but Sasuke always had something Orochimaru lacked. It isn't necessarily the genetics he boasted about before slaying his master, but a purpose. Power for power's sake is hollow. Sasuke could rapidly progress because his powerful eyes were always locked on a task in front of him. Even being as distorted as his vengeful road was, the end goal was at least always clear. In contrast, what did Orochimaru plan to do once acquiring all jutsu? What did he want to do with that wealth of knowledge? Well, no one knows, because he didn't know himself. In watching Sasuke, though, everything becomes clear. Power has hurt and blinded him, but the things he placed in front of him propelled him forward despite that. He stayed in motion, where Orochimaru succumbed to the paralysis of death. It is Sasuke's continuous shifts that dictate Orochimaru's demise and revival, so the snake would observe where the hawk descends. This new answer sparks cooperation in an old foe, and its destination would lead to more cooperative peace in the future. Like Naruto, Sasuke had begun to unveil his own form of resolution. It would lead him to the same battlefield as his rival, enlighten another soul who observes him intently, help in washing away 3 masses of darkness, and foster a conclusion that showcases where Naruto's rise leads. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a nice thumbs up. Helps me reach new people in the algorithm. Also, to make sure you see the next and final part, subscribe and click that bell so you don't miss it. Speaking of this next part, I'll finally get my chance to focus on the characters and themes in the war arc. Therefore, my promise dating back all the way to my Burden of Power video will soon be fulfilled. Please stay tuned, as the finale might just give you a new perspective on a commonly criticized section of the story. I have a Patreon. Consider supporting me to be with these epic people on screen here. Huge thank you to my top supporters: Spectre Mustang, Pack, Drepulk, Johnny, and Sensei Krolon. Another big thank you to Trap for the drippy thumbnail as usual. I whip and dab in your general direction. Sorry about fibbing about this being the finale, everyone. I promise, it wasn't intentional. Sometimes you just end up with a lot more material than you could have imagined. By the way, if you haven't already, join my Discord. It's completely free to join and the perfect place to chat it up with me. Link to join is in the About Me section of my Patreon page. Okie doke, that's all folks. Stay spicy, my boys.
Okay, so there you go. That's the video. Now I'm not gonna keep you guys here any longer. I've already kind of gone on some tangents in the video. I don't need to make this video any longer than it needs to be. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, maybe consider leaving a like, share this video, subscribe if you still haven't, make sure to hit the bell for notifications. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and make sure to consider joining me for my next video. Bye for now.